You guys officially win. Several of you have been asking me to do a direct comparison between Ultra Ego Vegeta and Black Frieza to see who would win in a theoretical, fully drawn out battle. And even though the answer seems pretty obvious, we will break down each character in terms of their advantages and disadvantages, as many Dragon Ball fans are wondering about the fate of their Saiyan Prince and how he would stand up to Frieza in a fight where obviously the plot would maybe give him some more chances that it never does. So without wasting any more time, let's get straight into this video and start off with Vegeta. Now, from a story standpoint, I think we can all definitely agree that it actually makes logical sense for people to believe that Vegeta might finally get his shot, because if you've been looking at what Dragon Ball Super has been doing recently, they're clearly trying to show that Vegeta is getting some type of renaissance within himself. As we saw in Dragon Ball Super Hero, he had that temporary moment where he defeated Goku in their training session, and then when we look at Vegeta in Dragon Ball Super Chapter 88, he's looking up into the sky, seeking all the motivation that he needs to finally put Frieza down, whereas Goku was not in the picture. And when we consider the fact that this is all showing that Vegeta has this extreme motivation to finally defeat Frieza, motivation would obviously be a huge factor here, because if you look at Vegeta specifically and compare him to Goku directly, one of the key reasons why Vegeta has gotten so strong in Dragon Ball is because of his motivation to surpass Goku. And while he's done this on several different occasions, even though it's never really been long term, it's that drive inside of him that continuously pushes him forward. And if Vegeta now has motivation to surpass Frieza and ultimately send him back to the home for infinite losers, this would obviously give him a huge mental advantage over Frieza, who probably just views Vegeta as a pawn on the chessboard that he doesn't really need to pay attention to. So from a mental point of view, Vegeta definitely has an advantage when it comes to motivation. And let's not also forget that Vegeta is also, or shall we say in the previous arcs, has been training with Beerus to utilize destructive energy. Now, as we've seen throughout Dragon Ball history, if Vegeta is able to fully utilize this to its full potential and have God of Destruction-like abilities combined with his Ultra Ego transformation, then this can be extremely deadly, because when we consider the fact that if he can truly master this and can just destroy Frieza using destructive energy, similar to how Beerus destroyed Zamasu, and how Goku also used the Hakai in his own right when he was fighting against Zamasu in the manga, then this can also be a direct way that Vegeta can finally put Frieza down, especially if Frieza is totally unaware of what an attack like this could truly be capable of. So that's definitely something else there too. Now, we also have to factor in allies. Vegeta's biggest advantage over Frieza is the fact that he has huge allies on his side. He has Goku, he has Broly now, because it's kind of funny to say that Broly's now a good guy, and then when you factor in characters like Gohan and Piccolo, Vegeta clearly has the strong guys on his side, whereas when you look at Frieza, I mean, it's basically just him and a bunch of weaker members of his empire that would never really pose a major threat. So from that perspective, Vegeta would clearly have an advantage there. Now, that's not to say that Frieza can't find somebody in his, empire or someone that he could train with that he could possibly boost up that could actually be a threat in his own right, but usually when you look at how it works in Frieza's stories, it's usually Frieza's so much stronger than everybody else that then other characters don't really matter, and as a result of that, Frieza definitely has his work going for him, which is why I can definitely understand a lot of Dragon Ball fans theorizing that 7-3 is somehow going to end up in Frieza's hands and become like his right-hand man in trying to take down, the universe and the characters that oppose him. Now, in addition to having the ally advantage, Vegeta also has a better level of training as compared to Frieza. Now, when we actually think about this literally, Frieza is definitely a prodigy in his own right, where he basically can just train for an extremely short amount of time and then just get extremely powerful. Yeah, 10 years is an extremely long amount of time, but then when you compare that to how much Vegeta and Goku have trained over decades, it's actually kind of low. Like, Frieza's training is relatively low, even compared to a character like Gohan, who's a lot younger. Frieza hasn't really trained that much throughout his life, so the fact that he only trained for 10 years plus, the months that he did before Resurrection F and got to this level of strength obviously means that Frieza has an advantage in a particular area, which we will cover in a second. But in terms of actual training quality, Vegeta has gone through so many different types of training with gods, training with Goku, training in the Room of Spirit and Time. going through all these different things and phases throughout different transformations, that in terms of actual fighting mechanics and abilities, he has better fighting sense, which ties into the quality of training that he has, because he was able to identify the weaknesses that Frieza had when he was originally fighting Goku in the Super Saiyan Blue vs. Golden Frieza fight. And last but not least, this directly ties into another mental advantage that Vegeta has. He has a far greater work ethic than Frieza. Frieza is an extremely lazy character. When you consider the fact that Frieza is clearly a lot faster than his spaceship and can breathe in outer space, Frieza should never need to use a spaceship, but I could also understand why he would still use one though, because, you know, obviously he wants to also transport his empire with him and obviously have his minions doing certain things, so that obviously makes sense why Frieza has it. But when you actually think about it, Frieza can just fly to another planet in the blink of an eye because he doesn't need to breathe in outer space and could just basically nuke a planet. He doesn't need to have this huge, grandiose entrance every time he comes into the show, and as a result of that, compared to Vegeta, who has a significantly higher work ethic, because as you've seen, Frieza only trains when he actually really needs to. Vegeta trains just to train, as we see him training to obviously defeat Goku, but now he's also training for Frieza, and because of the work ethic that Vegeta has, that would obviously give him a long-term mental advantage against Frieza. But how does Frieza tie into all of this when it comes to his particular advantages? Well, to start things off, he obviously has the power advantage as of right now, because, I mean, he basically just one-shotted Goku and Vegeta right there. Now, granted, obviously, you know, Goku and Vegeta weren't really expecting it. Maybe if they were better prepared, they would have stood a better chance, but basically, it's pretty clear that Frieza's far above Vegeta in terms of power, and considering how fast Frieza moved, I mean, he most likely has a significantly speed advantage, to the point where we could probably confidently say he has a huge speed advantage. So, when you combine those two things, Frieza also is a significantly better energy-based character than a character like Vegeta. Now, Vegeta and Frieza, if you analyze their fighting styles, they're both energy-based characters, but specifically when you look at Frieza, you know, with his ability to use homing Destructo Discs and all of these other attacks that we've saw him use against Goku when they were battling on Namek and much more, I mean, Frieza definitely has a huge advantage when it comes to that, and because of his energy manipulation, that might also balance out with Vegeta's destructive energy. It's two different types of energy, but, you know, if Vegeta's not on guard, he could easily be killed in the blink of an eye, especially, you know, because Frieza's attacks are literally all killing blows instead of other energy attacks that might give their opponents more margin of error to survive. Now, will we also factor in that Frieza also has a huge growth advantage that we were hinting at before with training? Frieza can get significantly stronger faster, even if he technically is not a better fighter than Vegeta hand to hand. And last but not least, Frieza's biggest advantage over Vegeta more than anything else is his anatomy, because the guy can breathe in outer space and he can survive from basically almost anything, whereas Vegeta's only real anatomical advantage would be Zenkai boosts, which haven't even really been discussed in the series for a while now. Where does all of this eventually lead us to? Well, for Vegeta, he basically has to solve three major problems. The first problem is that he has to completely master using destructive energy. And by complete mastery, we mean he has to be able or be capable of using attacks similar to what Goku did against Zamasu in the Zamasu arc, where Goku basically used the Hakai, or similar to what Beerus did, where he basically used his own Hakai against Zamasu and simply just erase him for existence, or something similar to what we've seen with Zeno, where he can basically just erase. Having an attack that's like that, where you can just simply vanish your opponent from existence, would obviously give Vegeta an advantage. But this takes us into number 2. If Vegeta's not able to do this, then he has to get significantly stronger. So if he can just conventionally train with Goku and Vegeta, Beerus and Whis, and then just get so much stronger in his Ultra Ego form that he can just defeat Frieza in a conventional Dragon Ball battle where he just powers up, then this would obviously be a very, very direct and open-ended way that he can defeat Frieza. But then the last reason is the most important reason as to why Vegeta is very unlikely to defeat Frieza, but it's also not impossible. And this is the fact that Vegeta needs to fight against the plot, because Vegeta's biggest enemy in Dragon Ball history is not Frieza, it's the plot. And if you know anything about the plot, if you look at Toyotaro, if you look at Toriyama, just think about it like this. You can basically have a story for Vegeta where he can directly defeat Frieza, but when you look at how the story always goes, it's always Goku who's going to get the win or somebody else, or they're going to tag team Frieza, and I don't mean tag team in that way, or do some other type of fusion or something else. And as a result of that, it just seems extremely unlikely that Vegeta will be able to defeat Frieza simply because of the fact that the plot is his biggest enemy, and in all likelihood, because Black Frieza is so powerful himself, Vegeta's unlikely to be able to just stop him all on his own. Now, there's also another possibility that the gods can get involved themselves and try to defeat him too, where you could have a character like Zeno or the gods of destruction intervene, and if that happens, then Vegeta's not getting anything. So now that we've broken it all down in more details, you can see why it's unlikely that Vegeta will eventually defeat Frieza.